3 weeks after coming into the country, I got on a bike and the journey wasn't even 10 minutes long. But I remember just dreading the whole I remember dreading it the whole time because I just kept feeling like, am I safe? Am I holding him too close? Is this uncomfortable? Like, what are the rules here, kind of thing. And I remember I got off the bike and I decided to take a selfie with this guy. He must think I was really crazy, but I just told him, hey, you're my first border ride ever in Kenya. And my accent had already changed. Like, my cousins were coming to talk to me, and all of a sudden I sound like this. I sound a little bit different, and they're looking at me like, what's happened to you? And I'm here like, I don't know how to explain.
Just stay here.
Just stay. Like, I don't know how to explain, but when I go to the market, you won't hear this sound.
Give me your experience when you're shopping now.
Nikienda shopping, how to me? Utasikia naongea hivi, huwezi jua.
Sometimes I will tell the students the way I used to do it in Kenya. I live in Answell, and then they will be asking me, what? You live in Answell? So they expect me to say I live.
I didn't develop the accent, let me just be honest, because I tried to remain as original as possible.
She has adopted the art of code switching as a mechanism of survival from people wanting to take advantage of her purported rich black Mzungu mentality. We are talking about none other than journalist Ashley Ogonda. Hello and welcome to Diaspora Life with me, Telewa, and here is Ashley's story.
You look so good.
Thank you. You have a beautiful place. Oh my gosh. I brought you some coffee. I told you like coffee.
Yeah, please, just leave it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
My name is Ashley Ogonda and I'm a journalist.
Ashley, I understand you're part of the diaspora team.
I am.
So give me your experience when you left the country to go to the UK.
So I left Kenya when I was very young. I was just 10 years old, and I remember very vividly just the day that we got on the plane. It was my first time getting on a plane. Wow. I feel like it was a Kenya Airways flight. I can't remember very clearly, but when we landed, which was this was January 2007. January is peak winter season in the UK, so it was very cold, and it's a type of cold that I had never experienced in my life. In fact, about 2 weeks into being in the UK, I remember there was a time when I wanted to go take a shower, and we were basically washing in the bathtub, kind of like a basin, you know, like how we use basins here, but now the opposite, just in a bathtub. And I remember the water was lukewarm, but because of my hands being so cold and basically frozen by the cold, when my hands and feet, when I stepped into the water, it felt like they were burning. It felt like my fingers were burning because of the drastic change in temperature. I remember I jumped out of the bathroom and I ran to my mom and I said, Mom, nachomeka, like I'm burning. And she's like, no, you're not. And I tried to explain to her what's going on, but she was just like, because at that point my mom had already been in the country for 3 years. So we joined her a little bit later after she went. And yeah, I just remember it being a massive culture shock, honestly.
Besides the weather, how was the reception now? You getting there and interacting with your peers, 10-year-olds around in the neighborhood?
Well, I quickly realized that the way people engage with their teachers, obviously like school was a big part of my experience there. The way people engage with their teachers there is very different. So I left when we were, you had to be very respectful to your elders and there's certain things you couldn't say. But I think when I got there, I realized maybe the culture is different. Kids are a little bit more liberal. They're very much more opinionated than I ever had the confidence to be with my teachers. And I was a relatively chatty kid, but I think I just saw a different type of interaction and relationship with students and teachers there. Some things that, some parents might say, hey, if you do that, they think that you'd be in trouble, but they managed to get away with it. So I think that was one of the things that just stuck to my mind. Like, the kids were very bold with how they conversed with their teachers. It's something it never shook out of me. I always looked at my teachers with like an air of respect, because it was ingrained from childhood here.
You are used to speaking Swahili?
Yeah.
Was that the case?
In my household, we spoke Kiswahili and English. So it was mainly Kiswahili actually most of the time, but obviously you speak English in school, in classes. So we were doing a lot of mixing, just like the typical Kenyan. By the time I got to the UK, my English was good. Like, I'd been learning it since I was a very young child. But I think what was really interesting was the next year we came back to Kenya, and by that time, my accent had already changed. Like, my cousins were coming to talk to me, and all of a sudden I sound like this, I sound a little bit different, and they're looking at me like, what's happened to you? And I'm here like, I don't know how to explain.
Just stay here.
Just stay, like, I don't know how to explain. But I mean, within a year and a half, it happened so quickly. And that was partly because I went at such a young age. I think if I went when I was older, maybe it wouldn't have happened so quickly, but those were some of the memories I can remember from the early days.
We hear a lot about the African hair. Give us the experience you had having black hair, being an African. How was it visiting the salons and stuff like that?
Having African hair, or being a black woman in the UK, when it comes to the hair department, can be a struggle, because the salons are very expensive. So if you don't know how to do your own hair, you have to learn. I mean, if the means aren't there for you to just spend hundreds of pounds every month going to salons, what are you going to do? Are you going to just look like a mess? Then, that's not the case. So what actually ended up happening was, around the time that I was, when you get to that age when you're like 12, that's when you start to do things by yourself, right? I remember I started becoming obsessed with YouTube at that time, because now it was new. It was a very new social media platform, and people were posting videos, and people started doing their hair journeys. So me, being this excited 13-year-old, I really embedded myself in that. I would binge watch videos and go and buy, like, I would use my pocket money that my mom was giving me for lunch. I would basically make sandwiches at home, take it to school for lunch, and save the lunch money that she's giving me. And that money I saved enough to go and buy products and bring them home. And I remember hair products. And I remember there was a time that my sister basically found out what I was doing, and she went and told my mom. And my mom tried to ban me from watching more videos, because she said, you keep watching these videos and you watch them and then you go and spend money. She wasn't happy about that. So that was basically the first few signs of influencing. But at that time, we didn't know what it's called. So that's what I used to do. I was like, I'm going to save, and then I'm going to go buy these products, because I was seeing how it was changing people's hair. And in many ways, it transformed how I relate to my hair, because I couldn't just relegate this task of hair care to someone else. I owned it. It gave me a certain sense of ownership that I appreciate now, because had I not had that experience, I think I wouldn't really know as much as I do now about how to care for my own hair.
What struck you, from the differences, because you had been in Kenya and now you got to the UK over time?
I think the first thing that's probably more noticeable is it just feels like the systems are more apparent. So there's ways in which things happen, and there's a bit more predictability. So even as something as basic as the bus, here we just take the matatu, you hail it down and you jump in. Sometimes it's overcrowded, sometimes if it's not filled, you have to wait mpaka ijai, or sometimes it's too packed, or you're smelling someone's armpit because you're in a weird, awkward position. But when I was in England, I remember like the bus system, especially for London, was so efficient. It even tells you that it's delayed by 2 minutes. You can see you're standing at a bus stop. You can't just hail a bus from anywhere. You have to be at a bus stop. And you can see that whether it's delayed, you can see exactly when it's coming, and it creates a sense of order in your life that I feel like sometimes hasn't been the case in Kenya. Not to say that there isn't a sense of predictability here as well. We have our own versions of that. But I definitely feel like just the way in which systems just operate very differently is a great example of like a massive difference between the two countries.
Yeah. Let's now talk about you coming back.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because you've spoken about the matatus, and I'm so curious about you coming back to the country and the mode of transport that you're using or you're hopping into. Give me your experience.
So I think I had a really funny experience. Just 3 weeks after coming into the country, I finally like roused up the courage to say, I'm gonna get on a motorbike and I'm gonna get on a boda and I'm gonna do it. And I'd been trying to convince myself for a while, but now, I think by the 3rd week I was like, I'm ready. I got on a bike and the journey wasn't even 10 minutes long. But I remember just dreading the whole time. Because I just kept feeling like, am I safe? Am I holding him too close? Is this uncomfortable? Like, what are the rules here, kind of thing. And I remember I got off the bike and I decided to take a selfie with this guy. He must think I was really crazy, but I just told him, hey, you're my first boda ride ever in Kenya. And he was really happy. He was very happy to take a selfie with me. And
tell me about your citizenship.
Well, I'm a dual citizen, so I'm both Kenyan and British. And I think that's even more reason why my mom was very happy for me to come back. She was like, I've already set you up. Like, you go, do your own thing. Because we got that around, I think, 5 years after living in the country. And yeah, I think what's really funny is people will see that this side of me, this very British side of me, but they don't know that behind the scenes, I'm that chick. I love going to the market. I love haggling, like, I love haggling for prices. When I go to the market, you won't hear this sound.
Give me your experience when you're shopping now.
Nikienda shopping, how to me? Utasikia naongea hivi, hauwezi jua.
So assume nauza mboga. Niko na kitunguu, nyanya hapo na carrots.
Hizi unauza ngapi? Hizi nyanya unauza
ngapi? Hizi ni mbao, hizi ni 50.
Hapana, hizi za mbao. Moja ni mbao. Hiyo ni bei ghali sana. Mama nipatie 320. At least 320 hata.
Sasa mimi nitalisha aje watoto?
Mi pia economy iko mbaya kwangu. Unaona hata vile ninakaa.
Wewe ni msichana wa hapo kile runda.
For some people, they assume that they can just take advantage of me because of how I sound, but mi najua vile kuswitch vizuri sana. So when I do that mix, when I put it in the on the repeat, there's no way you can finesse me. At least I don't think so.
Can you do an example?
Well, like okay, so right now as we're talking, I'm in that tune of like how I speak English, but naweza badilisha tu niongee hivi. Ama tuko kwa street, hata sheng najua kiasi. I had one particular instance, a situation that happened. This was probably the first year of me being back as well. And this is like proper Kanairo situation.
Thank you.
I feel like every Kenyan, regardless of whether you're diaspora or not, has been Kanairo'd, and you have to be initiated in order to learn your lessons, So nilikuwa nimeenda Kamkunji. I wanted to buy some bed sheets. And nilikuwa nimeenda specifically nikataka bed sheets za white. Nilikuwa nimemwambia ziko nyeupe. First of all nimemwambia in Kiswahili ndio tusikuwe na miscommunication hapa. Nimwambia nataka bed sheets nyeupe na duvet covers, okay? Wacha niende home na ngoja delivery the next day. Na nishalipa. By the way, vitu zilikuja sio ati hakudeliver, but she delivered the wrong thing. She came with big duvet sets themselves, not the covers. So me, I'm waiting for like a nice small package of like nice white bed sheets and duvet covers. Hey, I that day enyewe karibu nianze kulia, cause what happened soon after is me, I'm telling her this is not what I ordered. I didn't order for duvets. Now I have 5 giant duvets. You know the size of a duvet, and they were like king size, and there's 5 of them. And I remember she just switched on me and basically said that that's what I ordered. And if I was asking for the other thing, she would have said no because she knew that they're not in stock.
She wasn't apologetic or
something. She was
something?
not apologetic.
That's so us.
That's so, that's so Kanairo.
That is so us.
Yeah, I mean, like customer service, who happy. Okay. So I remember just thinking, what am I going to do with all these duvets? After I basically lugged them upstairs, cried a bit, started to think of solutions, end up selling them. And imagine they sold so quickly. In under a week, I sold all of them. Maybe that was a business idea.
So at least they gave you a business idea,
right? They gave me a little business idea, but that was an experience that showed me you have to roll with the punches. And it doesn't matter where you are, whether you're in England or in Kenya or wherever you are in the world, there's going to be situations where people try to take advantage of you regardless of where you are. So the best you can do is try to be street smart. And unfortunately, being street smart comes with a lot of sacrifices. Some bad experiences here, some lessons there. And that's just the way of the world. And
tell me about you being street smart in the streets of Nairobi. Another experience you have?
Another experience, I think maybe these are just bad experiences of bad things happening to me. Like, I think a classic example is you just have to be mindful how you're holding your phone. Yeah, I remember when I moved back, I got myself a nice brand new phone, and I think I had it for about just under 2 years, but iliibiwa. And iliibiwa like around December time, which apparently there's more hunger, you know? Watu wako na njaa hapo time ya December, wanatafuta vitu za kuiba labda kupeleka Christmas gift. I don't know. I don't know
people
what it's for.
Preparing for Christmas.
People are preparing for Christmas. They're preparing for January season, you know?
Perhaps.
Maybe. So now I remember like I was just coming out of my gym, and I was, you know, it's a very just a generally safe area. And I was standing by the bus stop waiting for Matatu to go home. And I remember just like and I think I was like on Instagram being idle. I remember these bodas just came, jumped, and there was like several people on the bike. They jumped off the bike, snatched my phone off my hand. Within less than 5 seconds, this whole thing happened, and they were back on the bike and they were gone. And I remember just feeling so, that feeling, unajua ukiibiwa simu. Unajua chenye vile uliwork hard kupata hiyo simu.
Au kuscream hata.
The way I'm responding right now is exactly how I was feeling. I was just like, I don't know what to feel. I don't know what to do. I think I had a moment of crisis, and I just broke down, and I remembered, oh well. I remembered I was looking to get a new phone anyway. See, there's always like, I think maybe that's just how I see things. There's just always an upside to a lot of things. And a lot of the things that cause us frustration, there's ways in which we can learn how to handle and deal with them. And in that moment, of course, I wasn't just thinking, nitanunua tu ingine. No, I was still very sad because I knew that that was my hard work just gone. But unfortunately, like, that's what Nairobi is known for. Like, phone snatching is part and parcel.
No, Nairobi is such a cool city to live in. You just need to be,
you just need to not be on your phone that often.
You need to take care of your valuables. Unafaa take care.
Unafaa take care sana.
Are you looking forward to going back?
I mean, to that question, I always like to say, I'm not in a rush. But I still feel like the world is my oyster. I think the privileges I've been afforded in my life to be able to have liberty to live at home and abroad has given me a lot of experience that probably wouldn't just be given to just anyone. So I want to make the most of it. But at the same time, I'm loving being back home, and I'm definitely planning on making more investments here and seeing where that takes me.
From a humble background in the dusty village of Namirama, Kakamega County, we meet Dr. Paul Oshule, currently a lecturer at Mount Kenya University, who shares his story of his long thirst for American education. Despite graduating with a master's and doctorate degrees from University of Toledo, he has embarked on an ambitious project of profiling Kenyans from his home county who studied in America since 1955 in a working book titled Thirst for American Education. And therefore we ask you, is American education overhyped?
I was doing some reading and I find out a lot of people started going to the US in 1950s, and I was curious in my own community where I grew up in Kakamega, how many people were able to travel overseas to pursue education just like myself 50 years later. How was the experience? Which programs did they study? How did they even end up going? So that was how the idea of, initially I thought I should just put a biography of one or two individuals. Then when I was reading further, I found out that quite a number of people had actually been in the US. So I decided, okay, let me put it in form of a book. And this book is a 50-year journey. And my community in Kakamega is called Abanyala. So I wanted to give back to the Abanyala society by documenting their sons and daughters who are able to walk the path of education. And the thirst for education was for an American education, fitting into my theme, how I also went up to pursue that education. So I've been doing a lot of reading, research on the internet, talking to family members, phone calls, and lucky enough I've put together a document that I will eventually publish as a book. And this book is going to be an eye-opener for other scholars, so that if you know somebody who studied a certain program in a certain university, that enough is already knowledge that you can use for research.
How easy has it been to gather the data, put together the data, because you're talking about 50 years?
Yeah, it was.
These people might be dead, you know.
Yeah, quite a number of the people left the earth, but lucky enough, I've been able to get information using different research approaches. One of the best approaches I've used is actually what we have as the internet. So the internet has a lot of information that has been very helpful in trying to collect some of that information. Then number two, phone calls through contact people, although sometimes can be very cumbersome and you have to introduce yourself, tell the person the intention why you're calling. Then some people might not be very interested in your idea. So another thing, there is something called, in the US, every university, each year of graduation, they have a database of people who graduate. They call it a yearbook. So that yearbook, I had to subscribe. Actually, for the whole year of 2020, I had to pay some money and I subscribe. So in that yearbook, if you know that so-and-so went to University of Minnesota in 1947 to this period, you can actually go to that graduation yearbook and corroborate the information. Then some of those fellows, they went on government scholarships, so some of them are documented. But it has been a very daunting task, especially the 50s, the 60s information. But I'm glad I've been able to put together the pieces. And something quite interesting is most of the people that I'm trying to document are accomplished scholars, locally and globally. So I want to use my book to inspire more upcoming young Kenyans, young Africans, so that they can have a reference point to actually view overseas education as a blessing and also an exploration.
That's all time could allow us today. I have been your host, Pasil Telewa, and I want to thank you for watching Diaspora Life. Join us again next week and every Friday at 8 p.m. on KTN News for amazing stories of Kenyans living abroad. Remember to share your stories with us in our social media platforms at diaspora_life and at Pasil Telewa, or email diasporalife@standardmedia.co.ke. Have a fantastic week ahead and see you soon.